Taylor Hawkins, real name Oliver Taylor Hawkins, was born in Fort Worth, Texas on February 17, 1972. Hawkins has a brother, Jason, and a sister, Heather. His family moved to Laguna Beach, California in 1976, and this is where Taylor grew up.
I grew up in Laguna Beach, California. I had moved there from Texas when I was 5.
Right.
And I had a neighbor named Kent Cleater who had a rickety-rackety drum set and a couple of beat-up acoustic guitars.
Right.
And I just wasn't really good at anything when I was 10.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't particularly good in school. I wasn't good at sport, as you would say. I was okay at baseball, but
Yeah.
I hadn't found something yet.
But in the summer of 1982, when Taylor was 10 years old, he did find something he was good at. Because that neighbor of his with that rickety-rackety old drum set taught Taylor the basics of drumming and told him that he really had what it took to be a great drummer.
He just said, "You're a drummer." He said, and like, you can tell really quick if someone's a drummer. There's some people that just, I guess they can't ever be, and I just took to it immediately. And so, I mean, that day there was like a lightning bolt shot into me, and it was like, no, and I'm like, I'm a drummer. That's what I'm going to do.
Hawkins stated his first two major influences on the drums were Roger Taylor from Queen and Stuart Copeland from The Police.
So my two first major inspirations, and I would say probably the two guys that shaped a lot of what I do when I play drums in a rock band, is Roger Taylor and Stuart Copeland.
From 1995 to 1997, Hawkins was Alanis Morissette's drummer on her Jagged Little Pill tour, and appeared in the Alanis music videos You Oughta Know, All I Really Want, and You Learn. With the Foo Fighters going in to record their second studio album, The Color and the Shape, there was a falling out between then drummer William Goldsmith and Grohl, and ultimately Goldsmith ended up leaving the band. Enter Taylor Hawkins. The drums for The Color and the Shape were played by Dave Grohl, so Hawkins did not drum on that album, but he joined the Foos and began touring with them, and appeared in the Foo Fighters music videos for Monkey Wrench, My Hero, and Everlong. The first recordings that Hawkins would do with the Foo Fighters were at Maida Vale Studios in London. The 5 tracks recorded in these sessions were done in April of 1997 and were mainly cover songs: Drive Me Wild, Requiem, Baker Street, and Carry On Wayward Son, finishing on a Dave Grohl original, Friend of a Friend. After The Color and the Shape, Hawkins would get to drum on his first Foo Fighters record. That was the band's third studio album, 1999's There Is Nothing Left to Lose. However, Taylor did not drum on all of the tracks here. There was a 50-50 split between himself and Grohl. Some of the tracks confirmed to be played by Taylor are Aurora, Breakout, and MIA, amongst others. After the release of There Is Nothing Left to Lose, the band moved into some more turbulent times. It was in August of 2001 that Hawkins OD'd, and that left him in a coma for 2 weeks. And Dave Grohl was beside his hospital bed in London for that 2 weeks until he woke up, with Grohl stating he was ready to quit music while Hawkins was in the hospital. But thankfully Taylor made it out of that. But there were more problems ahead, as just 8 months later, in April of 2002 at the Coachella Music Festival, Hawkins nearly quit the band. In Hawkins' final interview that he did with Rolling Stone magazine, he said that he was struggling to deliver a satisfactory performance on the album One by One. This was the first record which Dave Grohl left all the drumming to Hawkins.
The pivotal moment in the band's career, and it was definitely a make or break moment. And we hadn't finished One by One because it wasn't going so good. I was still coming out of my fog from London, and I was still coming out of my fog from thinking that, like, you know, should be a complete democracy. And we were doing Coachella, and we had a big argument because I had been just being a smartass and know-it-all, thinking I know it was right. And he just fucking said, you know what? I'm going to tell you right now. This is how it is. It's my fucking band. If you don't like it, fucking beat it. And I went, all right, I quit. And then, but we still had to do Coachella. And I really was like, and he was just looking at me like, yeah, sure you do. And I came in the next day, that's fine. I don't want to, I'm not going to be in anymore. And he's like, yeah, whatever. Okay, we're going to do this Coachella show. And we have to do that.
After the show, I remember going for a walk with him and him going, we're going back to Virginia, we'll finish this record, and then we're going to go on tour and we're going to be a band. So Taylor stuck with the band as they continued to work on their fourth studio album, One by One. And that album, which had been plagued by many problems, including having to re-record the album, was finally released in October of 2002. And it marks the first Foo Fighters album where Taylor Hawkins played drums on the entire album, as he did so from here on out. And next up, it is the Foo's double album, In Your Honor, where you will find Taylor Hawkins featured on the acoustic side a couple of times. Of course, he sings on track 9 on the second disc, Cold Day in the Sun, an amazing track. And also, if you look at track 7, On the Mend, in the 2011 Foo Fighters documentary Back and Forth, Dave Grohl revealed that he wrote that song about Taylor Hawkins while he was in that coma back in 2001. Over the coming years, the band would continue to grow massively worldwide, and their popularity would grow immensely with their next 3 studio records, Echoes, Silence, Patience and Grace, Wasting Light, and Sonic Highways. Then we come to the Foo's 9th studio album released in 2017, Concrete and Gold. And here you have Taylor Hawkins shining once again, taking lead vocals on a track. It was the song Sunday Rain, which featured Paul McCartney on drums. And again, just another very awesome song here with Taylor on lead vocals. Taylor would often get off his drum kit at Foo Fighters shows, and Dave would take his place, and Taylor would go up and sing songs. He was a very good vocalist and frontman in his own right.
What do you do in your downtime?
I haven't had a lot of downtime, actually.
You have other projects, though, don't you?
Yeah, I have other projects. So one of my downtime projects is a little band I have with a couple of my friends called the Coattail Riders. It's a funny little name. It's got some really good musicians in that band.
Do you record with them, or you just play?
Yeah, I record with them, and I sing and play drums in that band.
Aside from being the Foo Fighters drummer, Hawkins also released 3 albums with his side project, Taylor Hawkins and the Coattail Riders. Taylor played drums and sang for the 3-piece band. Their self-titled album was released in 2006, and went on to release 2 further albums, that was Red Light Fever in 2010 and Get the Money in 2019. And this all leads to the final Foo Fighters album that Taylor Hawkins would ever drum on, that was 2021's Medicine at Midnight, the Foo's 10th studio album. The album showed a different side of the Foos on several of the songs, showing that the band were not afraid to go in a different direction, with elements of dance, rock, and pop included on the record. But due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the album was pushed back and tours were delayed. But eventually the Foos did get back on the road, and they were in the full swing of things, performing at the Lollapalooza concert in South America. And this was just before the band were about to embark on a huge North American tour and world tour. So they played this show on March the 20th, and little did they know this would be the final time that Taylor Hawkins would ever play with the Foo Fighters. Because just 5 days later, on March the 25th, Hawkins was found dead in his hotel room in Colombia. Tributes poured in from around the world from many people who had known Taylor, from rock musician friends and fans. It was a shock to everybody, to say the least. Taylor was just 50 years old. Hawkins was married to his wife Allison in 2005, and they had 3 children together, Oliver, Annabelle, and Everly. Here are some of the final words from Taylor Hawkins in this voice message that he left on Thursday night to one of his friends. This was the night before he passed away.
Take care of each other, and I'll take care of me. And I will see you guys in Sao Paulo. I love, 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 love you guys. Sleep tight.
The Foo Fighters released this now well-known statement on their Twitter page at the time of Hawkins' death. Little more than a week after Taylor's death in early April, the Foo Fighters were scheduled to play at the 64th Grammy Awards. However, the band canceled their appearance, of course. The Grammys did pay tribute to Hawkins, and the Foo Fighters walked away with 3 Grammys on that night. But of course, understandably, were not in attendance. Taylor Hawkins is remembered for his charismatic personality, his amazing talent as a drummer, and just being an all-round good guy who truly found a brother in fellow musician Dave Grohl. And Taylor became such a massive part of the Foo Fighters himself, came to represent and stand for everything that band is. From the albums There Is Nothing Left to Lose up to Medicine at Midnight, Taylor drummed on some amazing Foo Fighters songs. In fact, you could say it was his drumming that was a huge part in what made those songs as amazing as they were, by adding his touch and flair on the drums. Taylor now goes down as a rock legend. Sadly, another one who passed away far too early, but will always be remembered. Rest in peace, Taylor Hawkins.